Xiaomi's T-series devices have always had a place in my heart. They offer flagship-level performance at a more affordable price. And this year, Xiaomi have done it all with the 15T Pro. There are some pretty impressive upgrades here. Just like with last year, there's no charging block in the box, but other than the device, you still get a rubber black case and a charging cable. The phone literally just got announced with a starting price of €799, which is the exact same price as last year's 14T Pro when it launched. The higher-end storage models retail for €899 and €999, so again, prices have remained exactly the same. And I'm actually quite surprised by that considering how much has been upgraded. I mean, it's quite a bit cheaper than what Samsung, Apple, and Google have to offer, and it packs in a serious punch. It comes in 3 colors. There's black, grey, and mocha gold. I have the grey variant, and while its design hasn't drastically changed, it looks much better. The backplate is now completely flat and is made from glass fiber. Its aluminum side rails are now more squared off, and it's actually thinner at 7.96mm thanks to that flat back. But my favorite thing about its design has got to be its refined camera module. You see, the lenses are now tucked behind the same camera island instead of sticking out. The actual island is now beveled, and the flash sits on the outside of the module on the backplate to make room for sensors like the IR blaster, which has now moved into the camera array instead of the top frame, which is now clean. All this makes it feel like a solid premium flagship, instead of it trying to be something it isn't. Its water resistance rating has also improved. It's still got an IP68 certification, but this time it can go 3 meters deep instead of last year's 2 meters. Its display is now protected by Gorilla Glass 7i, which isn't exactly a flagship spec, but it's quite an improvement over last year's Gorilla Glass 5. 7i is also used on the sub-branded Poco F7, by the way. The fingerprint sensor is still optical, but it seems faster and more reliable. And the always-on display can be set to always on, unlike some other affordable Xiaomi phones out there. And the cherry on top is that the bezels wrapping around the screen are ridiculously thin, coming in at just 1.5mm all around the phone. For comparison, the 14T Pro was 1.9mm, and while the Poco F7 is also 1.5mm, its chin was thicker at 1.9mm. So why do I keep bringing up the Poco F7? Well, the thing I loved most about the F7 was its display, and the Xiaomi 15T Pro has pretty much the exact same screen, with a few refinements here and there and a thinner bottom bezel. It's these small things that truly make the nerd come out of people like me. Just like the F7, the 15T Pro also has a 6.83-inch 12-bit AMOLED display with the same 1.5K resolution, the same 3200 nits of peak brightness, and the same 480Hz touch sampling rate. But unlike the F7, it has a 144Hz refresh rate, just like its predecessor. So when compared to last year's 14T Pro screen, the 15T Pro has a larger display, but that's about it. The 14T Pro has pretty much the same screen resolution, it actually has a higher brightness, and it also packs in PWM dimming. There's no word on PWM dimming this time around, but they do mention DC dimming. And even though it's supposed to have 144Hz refresh rate, when setting it to 144Hz, I could never quite manage to get it to go higher than 120. And when at 120, it stayed there most of the time regardless of the app you're in. It would sometimes drop to 60, but it would only ever go to 30 FPS when locked and on the always-on display. So in case you didn't notice, there is no LTPO tech here, just like last year. I guess they have to keep certain things for their more expensive flagships. But overall, I'm really impressed and very happy with the 15T Pro's display. And I'd actually love to see it implemented in their more expensive flagships going forward, with some improvements, of course. Thankfully, we still get eSIM support, which is a must for some people, along with dual SIM 5G, NFC, Bluetooth 6, and Wi-Fi 7. But new to the 15T series is astral communication, including offline communication, for the first time in a global Xiaomi device, which means that you can communicate with someone via voice up to a range of 1.9 kilometers without needing Wi-Fi or cellular. The only catch is that the other person also has to have a Xiaomi 15T series device. And then there's software, which is HyperOS 2, skinned over Android 15. So it has the same visual and animation improvements and all the same AI features we've been using for the past year. But Android 16 is already out, and Xiaomi literally just announced HyperOS 3 skinned over Android 16. Unfortunately, the Xiaomi 15T series devices stick to HyperOS 2 skinned over Android 15 out the box, with an expected release of OS 3 coming at the end of October 2025. So I guess we'll have to wait for all those new AI features, including Hyper Island. aka Dynamic Island. This is still a global device though, so we still get Google Discover out the box, along with Circle to Search and Gemini Live.
Hi, I'm Gemini. We're about to go live, where you can explore complex topics or ideas just by talking.
Those dual speakers are flagship level, and so is its battery, jumping up to 5,500 mAh, up from last year's 5,000 mAh cell. And while wireless charging has remained the same at 50 watts, wired charging has actually dipped down from 120 to 90 watts. Powering the phone is the 3nm run MediaTek Dimensity 9400 Plus chipset. It's pretty much a Dimensity 9400 chip, but its prime core has now increased to 3.73 GHz, up from 3.63. So it's no doubt a decent improvement over last year's 9300 plus CPU in terms of benchmark scores. And even though it scores a bit more than the standard 9400, it still doesn't quite match up to Snapdragon 8 Elite scores. But I doubt you'd notice much difference between any of these chipsets, and recently Dimensity CPUs have proved to be more battery efficient. The 15T Pro also benefits from an upgraded 3D ice loop cooling system, along with LPDDR5X RAM and newer UFS 4.1 storage. But when it comes to gaming, phones have already kind of reached their limits of what they can actually do. So just like with last year, the 15T Pro managed a solid 120 FPS when playing Call of Duty Mobile. It just sucks that it's capped at 120 FPS, even though the display should reach 144 Hz. It's a bit more stable when playing more demanding games compared to last year, but we're still averaging around 60 FPS in Genshin Impact on maxed out settings, though that is the cap of this game. And when playing Wuthering Waves, which also has the 60 FPS cap by the way, on the highest possible settings, it also hits a solid 60 FPS on average, and it seemed to be even more stable than Snapdragon powered devices. So while the Dimensity 9500 and Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 have already been announced, the 15T Pro sticks to the overclocked Dimensity 9400 Plus CPU. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I mean, it's more than powerful enough for most users, and I seriously doubt even high-end users would notice much of a difference between the older chip, slightly older chip, and the latest chips. But I mean, we'll have to wait and find out about that. But this also allowed them to put more money into their camera system. The biggest and only real upgrade here is its zoom camera, which is now a 50 megapixel periscope sensor with an f3.0 aperture and OIS. It has a 115mm focal length for a 5x optical zoom. This is the first periscope seen in a Xiaomi T-series device, and last year's telephoto could only reach 2.6x optical zoom. The main camera is still a 1 in 1.31 inch sized 50 megapixel Light Fusion 900 sensor with an f1.62 aperture and OIS. The ultra-wide camera is also unchanged and still relies on a subpar 12 megapixel sensor with f2.2, and while the selfie camera is still 32 megapixels, it now has an aperture of f2.2 and a wider focal length at 21mm. The ongoing Leica partnership still stands with the same vibrant and authentic color profiles, which can be used across all of the rear sensors. The ultrawide still leaves a lot to be desired, but the new AISP 2.0 does seem to improve things a bit. The main camera, on the other hand, is still superb and takes decent 2x lossless zoom photos too. That new 5x periscope camera takes incredibly detailed optical zoom photos, and 10x in-sensor zoom shots look incredible. Xiaomi is calling this 10x optical level zoom. And just like with their top tier flagships, the 15T Pro now also has an Ultra AI zoom feature which kicks in from 20x. 30x zoom photos look very good, but things start to fall off when reaching 100x zoom. Though I can't really complain since last year's phone capped out at 30x max zoom. We do get a super macro mode this time, which relies on the 5x periscope sensor and can't be used with any other sensor. The results are above average, but the minimum focusing distance is around 27 centimeters, which is certainly not the closest I've seen. Portrait shots come out very pleasing when using the main camera, and we still have an option for master and Leica portrait color profiles. Master portrait is still my go-to, and the periscope sensor takes some seriously detailed portraits at 5x optical levels. The selfie camera is now more flexible due to its longer focal length and takes some very pleasing photos with perfect edge detection in portrait mode. And I was quite surprised with how well selfies came out at night too, with the 21mm shot pushing the most detail. We'll be sticking to automatic night mode for all night pics. Taking portraits with the main camera come out great as well, but this time I tend to prefer Leica portrait mode for a more natural night scene. And it's the same case when taking 5x optical zoom portraits with the periscope. The Leica profile just looks better. I still can't believe how well this periscope performs. The ultrawide shows its true age at night and is certainly its weakest link, while the main camera takes great snaps at night aside from some questionable light noise handling. The periscope sensor handles light noise a lot better, and its 10x zoom shots look equally as good as its 5x optical zoom photos. And I was actually really surprised how decent long zoom range pics came out at night, with 30x still packing in the most detail. Even on an overcast day, ultrawide video still performs well, aside from some shuddering and underexposure. 4K ultrawide video is still limited to just 30 FPS, but just like last year, you can still shoot 60 FPS video when dropping down to 1080p resolution. The main camera can, however, record 4K 60 FPS video, and it packs in loads of detail and offers more than decent stabilization. There's also a 4K 120fps video option, but it's limited to only the main camera, and for some reason there is no 4K 120 slow motion option. I stuck to 60fps here as it makes more sense when testing out detail and stability. The new periscope sensor can also shoot 4K 60fps video, and I was very impressed by how stable the video came out. It's extremely smooth when panning and detail is booming. Xiaomi definitely thought this through, and this new sensor on a T-series device is a massive game changer, especially considering its price point. There's no master cinema mode like last year, just a standard bokeh mode. And while it's still capped at 1080p, it still looks great, but the large main camera already provides decent natural depth and can shoot at 8K 30fps. 8K is limited to the main, but all the sensors, even the selfie, can record 4K HDR10+ video. The main and periscope allow for 4K 60 HDR video. There's also a bokeh mode for selfie video, but again it's capped at 1080p. And while detail and edge detection are great, stability is a bit questionable. So the Xiaomi 15T Pro can only record selfie video at 4K 30fps, even though it has a new selfie sensor this year. It's still capped at 30fps when using 4K, just like we saw last year, though there is still a 1080p 60fps option. Either way, let me know your thoughts of the video quality as well as the microphone performance. Recording selfie video at night is okay, but there's loads of noise grain and detail is a bit lacking. There's a night video mode option when shooting with the rear main camera, but it only works with the rear main camera, and it looks great at 4K 24fps, though there is some lens flare and a bit of unwanted film grain. The ultrawide camera is again the biggest drawback for the 15T Pro, especially when recording video at night. Light noise is handled terribly, detail is smudged, and noise grain is very apparent. Main video at night is significantly better, especially when using the night video mode. Detail is fantastic and so is exposure and dynamic range. Unfortunately, light noise isn't always handled the best, and it tends to get affected by lens flare. I also wish things came out a tad bit smoother when panning. But I was very impressed with how smooth 5x periscope video came out at night. And aside from some film grain, detail and color accuracy are excellent. The Xiaomi 15T Pro has seen some very decent upgrades over its predecessor. I love the new design, it's stronger, has better waterproofing, a larger display with tiny bezels, a larger battery, a faster chipset with faster storage, now has a flagship level periscope camera, and they haven't even increased the price. I'd like to see an upgraded ultrawide camera, a USB 3 port, and an LTPO display in the future, but I guess they have to leave a few things for their more expensive flagships. But even with these few compromises, at this price point, I doubt you're going to find a better phone than the Xiaomi 15T Pro. As always, this is TechNick, and I'll catch you in the next one.